Okay.
Testing. Short people. I got to turn this up higher. I guess we can get started here. Is all good to go to Rebecca? Okay. I guess we're going to start off with the flag song. It's good to see people here from College of Medicine, Indigenous Health and Wellness. And one of the common things we usually do as Indigenous people is we always start with the flag song, or ceremonial song, I guess, of any events that we do happen to host. And I think of the type of work we do with across northern Saskatchewan and Manitoba. It's working with hepatitis, HIV, AIDS. Now, I'm going to start off with the flag song, and then what I'll do is I'll say a prayer as soon as I'm done my song. You can pray along with me, that way you know how your beliefs and whatnot. I'll pray for the organization of all of us that are here and the people that are listening in. Aseminek pena tamotataden. Agaktumaki toin istauskapio suyan. Mamu tama kamano mamsika kamamsi atagoin mga pena tamotatagoin. Mamu tamaki tonan. Aon so magotawitap magnista kuesa kuidutagi nehio etuskoatsik. Ako mesan tataman kismi peki ko mo tama agaktumaki toin. Aktumaki non suamak. Vista kuesa kuidutagi kanakatugi signehio. Kaksnamuasik. Kapukawita magi sa kaisa toski tsum. Mo tama ko manista iskas kita nes piskwesta magian. Kamam tenemi kam kaktumagino inista. Mumsta inista ng skiten mo tayo ko batebia magandataman. Kapidute anista. Ego iskas kita anista kamam teneta magi ko toskiun. Kakkiun mutta nehio kakatasko hagan taskin auta kakkiuta. Ako sen tatamata mo tama kaktumagiton. Ganista kitaan. Aktumaki non sua makatido tapito sa sino kataguto at sugot wista kataske sa kawidat sa skema. Kaktumaki na itamak kaktumaki no kay sino kataskoas. Ako mi depesin tataman mamo itang mo. Ako iskas kitaan. Ako sa manista. Nanaskum tin mamo itang mina. Nanaskum. Gnosidon.
Well, hello, and welcome to Waniska here in Treaty 6 territory. And this is National Indigenous Day, truly a day for us to rise. I'm Jennifer Cannell, and I'll be your moderator during this launch of Waniska. You might find this voice a little bit familiar, and that's because I spent close to 20 years reporting and hosting at CBC Television, CBC Radio. These days, Saskatoon is still my home, but I'm more creating and hosting the podcast, Researchers Under the Scope at the College of Medicine. As for me, I'm learning a little bit more about the Métis, the French-Canadian roots running through my father's side of the family tree. The Cannells went back and forth between our home community of Manigatagan, that's in Manitoba. We also crossed the border. We were in Montana and Minnesota during and after the time of the Red River Resistance. And gathered here at Waniska on Treaty 6 territory, we would like to pay our respects now to the Cree and the Métis ancestors of this place, to the Saulteaux, to the Blackfoot and Nakota people, all the ancestors who met on this land, who traded here and made these prairies home. They'd gather here, and today, the day with the sun being the longest it's out going to be all year, we are reaffirming our relationship with one another, with those ancestors and the land that we are part of. Now, thank you to Harvey Thunderchild over there. Harvey is our ceremonialist, and he sang that beautiful Indigenous flag song we just heard. Thank you for your prayers to us in Cree to start us off in a good way. Harvey is a member of the Thunderchild First Nation, and he grew up learning his Cree traditions, his culture, well, thanks to his grandfather, Ed Thunderchild, thanks to his father, Victor Thunderchild, and so many relatives and family. So thank you, Harvey. We also heard a little bit more about this place, and there is a song that I'd like to present for you now. This is from the late elder Simon Kaitwehat. This is our Waniska song. Now that was Simon Kaitwehat. He's from the Makwasagayakan First Nation. And if you're wondering what the words of that song were, well, they're the key here. They mean, let's all get up now. The morning is here. The birds are already singing. Look up. It's going to be a beautiful day on earth. And Waniska itself, it's a word that comes from both the Cree people use it and the Soto people use it. It effectively means wake up and rise. Come and greet this new day. So right now I'm counting, there's not quite 30 of us here in this room, and I just want to say thank you. It means so much in this pandemic to see your eyes smiling at me from under the masks. Thank you for making the effort that it takes to be here today, and your hope, your presence, and your energy are going to give us the light we need coming in from the solstice today. It gives us the spark we need as we launch Waniska. I'd like to go ahead and thank all of the people who made today's launch possible. So maybe just hold on, don't applaud right away. But thank you to the Waniskewin Heritage Center for providing us with this beautiful space. Thank you to Dean Friesen and the 5x5 crew back there. They're the ones making everything technical happen online, on the video screens. They've been working right down to the wire on this, just to keep us all connected with video no matter where we are in Manitoba or Saskatchewan. All of the speakers, the ceremonialists, the performers that you're about to meet, each of them has gone out of their way to support Waniska in this center. Thank you to the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, to community partner organizations, to Ganiganichik in Manitoba, to the All Nations Hope Network in Regina, to all the collaborators, the investigators, the knowledge users, all those who helped form the vision and the structure of the center. Thank you to Dr. Alexandra King's Indigenous Wellness Research Group. Piyesis. I'm still working on that. Piyesis. This is the name for it at the College of Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan. And thank you to the college and the university themselves, to all the administrators and to those who've made this launch possible, thanks to financial support, to their in-kind donations. Together, we wake up and we rise. So there's a bit more of me talking, and then we will show you some of the people who have come together to make this happen. But why Waniska? Why are we here even? Well, Indigenous people in Canada, almost all people in Canada, know Indigenous people face disproportionate rates of HIV, hepatitis C, and other sexually transmitted and bloodborne infections. We represent not quite 5% of the people in this country, yet Indigenous people have 24% of all the HIV cases in Canada. You can draw pretty much a straight line between all these structural iniquities, poor health determinants. You can draw that line straight to colonization. Hundreds of years of colonial politicians, thought leaders, trying to erase First Nations and Métis knowledge and culture, trying to erase families, erasing language, erasing the good ways of staying healthy and strong. And nowhere do we see this more plainly than in Saskatchewan and in Manitoba. Looking at the numbers, I've got to do a little bit of numbers here. If you look back at 2018, one of the most recent years we have stats for, if you look at the new HIV infections in Saskatchewan, 2/3 of the male cases were in men who self-identify as Indigenous. As for the women, well, for new HIV infections there, 87% of those infections are for women who self-identify as Indigenous. Over in Manitoba, more than half of all the new HIV infections are among Indigenous people. We know this. We've known this for years. We know because all the universities and well-meaning research teams have come to tell Indigenous people what's wrong with us, why our health is broken, why Indigenous people in this country are 7 times as likely as other Canadians to pick up the virus that causes hepatitis C. I'd say the need for a center like Waniska is clear because we have watched everyone pointing fingers. We've watched those well-meaning research teams, our newsrooms, I was in one, churning out story after story about these sad statistics. Indigenous people, we live here too, we hear the same news, but are the voices of Indigenous people heard, really heard the same way? I think we're done with the finger pointing and being blamed. And what researchers and academics and universities have been doing for years, yes, it's been earnest, they meant well, but not surprisingly, not a super effective approach. It really hasn't changed things all that much. And we haven't had much listening or much reflection together, not on a deeper level, not until now. And truly, this is what makes Waniska special. Now, this is the time where I'm going to talk a little bit about the woman who made it possible, our keynote speaker, the woman who rose up and made Waniska a reality. It's funny because I only met her today in person. I first met Dr. Alexandra King over the phone as we were speaking about her work with slow research. Her work as the inaugural Cameco Chair in Indigenous Health and Wellness at the University of Saskatchewan. And we spoke then about why she feels so strongly that it is elders. It's those people with lived experience who should be leading and shaping health research. Now, Dr. King sits on a staggering number of international boards and committees. She's the principal investigator on a number of projects around and for Indigenous people, around HIV, HCV, the co-infections. And rather than studying just at a distance, Dr. King makes a point of working closely with people, and she listens first. She finds good ways for First Nations and Métis people to articulate our own health and wellness needs. And over time, she's become an expert in culturally responsive research and care and reconciliation and something called two-eyed seeing, bringing the Indigenous perspectives and giving them just as much weight as what we know from modern Western medicine. She's an expert in ethical space and holding that space. And together with her husband, Dr. Malcolm King, she leads Pawasesquan, the Indigenous Wellness Research Group. I'm learning how to say it better and better. Thanks to the staff in Vancouver and thanks to the staff in Saskatoon as well, let's all welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Alexandra King.
Hello and welcome. My name is Alexandra King, and I am a member of Nipissing First Nation, which is located in what has become known as Ontario, about a 4-hour drive north of Toronto. I belong to Eagle Clan by birth and have been adopted into Turtle Clan. I am the Cameco Chair of Indigenous Health and Wellness at the University of Saskatchewan, and as such have both the honor and pleasure of living and working in Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis and what has become known as Saskatchewan. I've been asked to talk to you about Waniska, and so I'm going to start first with the meaning of the word. Waniska is a Cree and Saulteaux word that means wake up, awaken, rise, wake up and get moving. Among the Métis, it is also known as Waniska in Métis. This is a concept filled with optimism for the new day, which we greet with renewed energy and passion. It is a verb, reflecting that as Indigenous people, our knowledge is action-oriented. Waniska is a name that was chosen by the Saskatchewan Health Authority Patient Family Advisory Committee for HIV/AIDS and is a tribute to people living with HIV. To carry on this tradition, Waniska was gifted to the Saskatchewan-Manitoba Indigenous Centre for HIV, Hepatitis C, STBBI inequities, and it is a name that we carry with honor and fully celebrate it. In terms of the history of Waniska, a few years back, the Canadian Institutes for Health Research had a funding call for HIV, Hepatitis C, and STBBI research centers. A fairly large and diverse group of researchers from Saskatchewan and Manitoba came together with the idea of proposing a center for this region specifically. We had a number of aims in mind for this center, and I guess to start with, it was to create innovative land and culture-based research that was really designed by, with, and for the Indigenous people of this region. We wanted to really focus on Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing with the knowledges that arise from these lands and waters. And we want to do so in a way that would allow us to develop and innovate implementation and program science research projects that brought in strong Indigenous ways of knowing and doing. Part of our goal was to grow and create sustainable infrastructure that would support Indigenous communities and our up-and-coming academics. As such, training and mentoring the next generation of Indigenous scholars, practitioners, and community members in Indigenous approaches to HIV, Hep C, STBBI research, scholarship, and knowledge mobilization are key components of this research center. As well, we really wanted the opportunity to interlink with each other in critical partnerships that spanned an artificial border that was imposed on this region by colonization. We felt that this would be among the best ways to fundamentally address the HIV, Hep C, STBBI inequities experienced by Indigenous people in these territories. As such, the Waniska Center focuses on two-eyed seeing, which is a process of bringing the ways of seeing through Indigenous eyes as well as those of Western eyes, and bringing them together and using them both in a complementary or synergistic fashion. We also are very much focused on gender rebalancing, and particularly in the ways of knowing of the First Nations and people of these lands. We want to work with communities and really be creating community-led, community-centric, Indigenous-led research. And we felt that it was critically important for us to be approaching it in this way, given the elevated rates of HIV, hepatitis C, and STBBI experienced by Indigenous people in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. We chose June 21 as the day to launch the Waniska Center officially, and we did so for a couple of reasons. First of all, it is National Indigenous Day, and as such, it has been a day of celebration for Indigenous people for many years, in fact, centuries. And part of the reason why we celebrate this day is that it is summer solstice, a very important time for us. It is a day where the sun is up the longest. We really appreciate the warmth of summer after long and hard winters. We appreciate the opportunity to come together in celebration. As well, it is a time to reflect on what is in short supply, and in this time of year is actually the nighttime hours, the time that we take to dream and to vision. And so therefore it is also critically important that we engage in dreaming for those who are to come and how we create a better world for them. Waniska is a time when we are celebrating the rising of the sun, the new day, new life. Let us take and celebrate Indigenous people and support us rising up to really address the challenges of HIV, hepatitis C, STBBIs, using our own knowledge, our own ways of knowing, being, and doing, and our own ways of healing and being well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. King. Dr. King is sitting here. She's right by the other Dr. King who's wearing the blue shirt. You can all see her. Thank you. Now, from Treaty 4 territory, closer to Regina, which is where I grew up, I'd like to welcome a Cree woman whose family ties go to the George Gordon First Nation. Margaret Kisikaw Piyesis is the CEO of the Canadian Aboriginal AIDS Network. She's the Finance and Research Director at All Nations Hope Network in Regina. And for the last 20 years, she's been using culture, ceremony, and humor to respond to HIV, Hep C, and that intergenerational impact of colonialism in the part of the world that we now call Southern Saskatchewan. Margaret knows who she is as a Cree woman. She's a community leader, she's a pipe carrier, and a medicine carrier. Please welcome Margaret Piyesis.
Margaret Piyesis. I'm the CEO for the CAN, which is a national network in Canada. I'm also the Finance and Research Director for All Nations Hope Network here in Saskatchewan. I've been doing this work for over 20 years in the HIV field. More importantly, I believe I've been doing work among Indigenous people for all of my life. My ancestors are from this land, and I believe that as we move forward, our Indigenous ways of knowing and doing will bring health and wellness to the people. I got involved with Waniska in the early stages with the research team, and many of the team members I know and I've worked alongside, and we all have the similar ways of knowing and doing as Indigenous people. I believe Waniska has the ability to wake up the nations on this land to begin to look at ways of healing and wellness among Indigenous people living with HIV and the other diseases that have come to this land. And as we move forward, we're looking for solutions, and research has the ability to bring Pimasuan life to the people. And when it's done by Aboriginal people, for Aboriginal people, that's where we'll see movement in our communities, in our nations, in our families, in ourselves, begin to rise and begin to acknowledge the many relationships we have here, Wokotowin, with the people that came here to this land. And to lead forward in our Indigenous ways of knowing doing is so important. And research, like I said, has the ability to bring life, Pimasuan, to this place. So I want to thank all of the research team, all of the people that were involved with the ceremony that put this together. Research is ceremony, like all things that come from it. Indigenous people are very spiritual, and ceremony is a very important part of the work that we do every day on this land. Again, asking for Pimasuan each day is so important. Waniska has grown and developed out of a need for more voices to be heard as we move forward to look for those solutions. And it began in ceremony, and it continues to exist through ceremony. As Indigenous people, we know that ceremony is very important to us as we begin to look for the solutions for what we face. So thank you. Nanaskaman, kind-hearted warrior woman. My other name is Margaret Piyesis. Piyesis is my family name. It means daybird in Cree. I am a Nihia Hiskoyo, a Cree woman that has taken on roles and responsibilities to be able to bring Pimasuan life to the people.
Thank you, Margaret. Now, we'd like to introduce the TJ Warren Dance Crew. Now, TJ Warren himself is Navajo. He's originally from Arizona, and he is a champion prairie chicken dancer. Now, that's how he met his wife, Dabney. It was out on the Powwow Trail. Together, they have 2 daughters, and they live here in Saskatoon now. So he leads the TJ Warren Dance Crew, and today he is gracing us with 2 performances of his chicken dance.
Welcome to Treaty 6 territory. We are coming to you live from Waniska Heritage Park. Waniska, we are here celebrating the launch, Waniska. So thank you again for tuning in and being able to be a part of the dance presentation. The men's prairie chicken dance, the men's traditional and the woman's fancy will be demonstrated here today with narrations and sharing the oral storytelling tradition of the First Nations people in this territory. So today, we are being able to gather and being able to carry on the legacy that the ancestors have left behind for us. Again, we are here again today to be able to join and being able to celebrate the resiliency of First Nations people, and being able to fight the epidemics that we face in many of our communities. With the practice of traditional medicine and also the contemporary medicine, we are doing our best here today. So with that, we're here to celebrate and enjoy some dancing and some singing. First off, we have the men's prairie chicken dance style. The men's prairie chicken dance style originates amongst the Blackfoot Confederacy. The dance style is said to originate when a young man had come upon a prairie chicken. After killing the prairie chicken and eating the prairie chicken had come home to visit him. In his dream, this prairie chicken had shared with him that he was in ceremony. And so the young man had made an agreement to carry on this dance, this ceremony that this prairie chicken was portraying. This was the birthing of the men's prairie chicken dance. So with that, here when we dance, we mimic the prairie chickens in an early courtship mating season dance that they do. And so with that, here is the men's prairie chicken dance brought to you by myself, the TJ Warren from the Great Diné Nation.
Thank you, TJ. And TJ Warren and his dance crew will be back a little bit later in our program with a ladies' fancy dance, also a men's traditional. Well, we wouldn't be here today without the insight and the knowledge of people who go through every day with HIV/AIDS, with the hepatitis C virus, with those sexually transmitted and bloodborne infections, and their lived experiences, right from their diagnosis to hospital stays to trying to find health providers who understand some of those seemingly invisible barriers, those obstacles that keep cropping up. These are the people with the lived experience that Waniska needs if we are to wake up and rise. So this is where Jackie Flett comes in. She's Ojibwe. She's a member of the largest reserve in Manitoba, the Peguis First Nation from Treaty 1. Now she lives in Winnipeg, where she is a mother, a grandmother, and a community builder. Please welcome Jackie Flett.
My name is Jacqueline Flett. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm a proud Métis woman from here in Treaty 1 territory, which is the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Ojibwe, and Cree people, and Dene. I'm a proud mother of 2 boys, age 4 and 9, and I am positive. I have lived positive. This is going on my 10th year, and I am an advocate and spokesperson across Canada for Indigenous women who live positive, that are living their best lives and have become members of their communities in telling their stories firsthand. I am a proud Indigenous woman that has been on Waniska currently for 1 month now. I think part of having something to do with Waniska as a Indigenous woman with HIV is detrimental to me in Manitoba and in Saskatchewan. I believe Waniska is going to help our people and us as Indigenous women and us as Indigenous people move forward, especially with the research aspect. As myself, as doing research in previous years, I understand the great lengths to focus on STBBIs and outbreaks here in Manitoba and in Saskatchewan. And I feel that Waniska is doing a proactive approach and strength-based model and approach to better ourselves as Indigenous people that live positive, that are fighting against STBBIs and HIV care. I feel Waniska is going to better our situation because we have a place to go now. As someone who lives positive, there wasn't that aspect here, and there is now. So I believe that having somebody at the forefront that is able to tell their firsthand experience like mine is going to be really good for other positive people to hear that are on the other side. So when I was first diagnosed, I was 28 years old. I am now 37. So I'm going on my 10th year of being diagnosed as a positive person. When I first was diagnosed, there was a lack of empathy and care to get adequate care for Indigenous positive people here in Manitoba. I'm not too sure how it was in Saskatchewan, but for me, there was absolute lack of getting tested. There was not really good testing quality here in Manitoba where we could get access to care. There was lack of, I should say. I feel that having the Waniska Lodge is a great site for people who first get diagnosed to talk to other peers that are newly or have been with lived experience. I believe that the Waniska Foundation is set for people like me, and they can help us get adequate testing, linkage to care, access to care, and providers, as well as connecting us with people like us. So positive people, people with lived experience, and I think that's that wasn't part of my healing journey as a person that's positive, but I'm glad that it's there and you can access this at Waniska as a positive person, or somebody that's needs to find out a little bit more firsthand from firsthand experiences like I have with somebody living positive. I'm also a mother that lives positive, so I'm a positive parent, and I think that we need more positive people and positive parents to tell their experiences firsthand to other positive people, so that there's an understanding and that we can come in with empathy, and we don't have to necessarily feel that we're judged. We're coming in as one, and we walk as one. I guess my hopes for the future would I'd like to actually see other positive people taking a lead, like as a role model, and having their voices heard as Indigenous positive people.
Thank you to Jackie Flett. And next up, we have a musical group one that actually looked at the historical and modern threats of colonialism. And they said, nope, that threat ends here. So Silla and Rise are who we'll hear from. Silla are the Inuit throat singers Charlotte Kamenik, Charlotte Carlton, and Cynthia Pitsulak. Now, for the last 6 years, these women have been performing with Rise Ashen. He's the Rise in Silla and Rise. He's a percussionist, a producer of global grooves, driving beats, and exploring sound that is rooted in tradition. Let's welcome Silla and Rise.
Hey, we're Silla and Rise, and we're so excited to be performing for the launch of Waniska.
Waniska is an Indigenous-led, Indigenous-focused research center. This center will be able to provide the support that communities need to carry out the research and actions they feel will benefit their communities for Indigenous people at risk for HIV, HCV, and STBBIs. So as Silla and Rise, Charlotte and I are the Inuit throat singers, and Rise is our producer and beat maker. So Inuit throat singing is done by 2 Inuit women. We have a leader and a follower. We choose a song which is typically a competition song, a lullaby, a song that interprets sounds of nature, sounds of the environment, sounds of animals. There's a leader and a follower. The leader sets the rhythm, the tone, and the pace of the song, and the follower has to do exactly what the leader does a second right after. So there are no lyrics. All of the sounds come from our throat, and we just create this beautiful game. Throat singing originally is done by women because when men were out hunting for long periods of time, women would stay home at the camp with their children, taking care of the homes, and it was a way to keep warm, to entertain ourselves, to entertain our families and our children. As well, there's a spiritual element to it. When men were out hunting, women would sing with each other to influence spirits to bring luck to the men while they were out hunting so that they could come home successful with their catch. So it's a very beautiful, very sacred practice that Inuit women have been doing for thousands of years, and that is what we're doing. But we're mixing it with these really cool beats, and we're creating this awesome rhythm with you guys, so we hope you really like it. Check us out, we're Silla and Rise.
All three of us were really pushing it.
Wow. Thank you so much to Silla and Rise. Wow, that's just cool. All right, our next speaker was born in North Vancouver, and then some would say she was Scoop, some would say she was adopted. Anyway, she was raised in Regina starting at the age of 10, and Cora Sellers is Inuvialuit, and she doesn't miss very much. Cora is a sociologist. She pushes for and speaks up for people who are struggling to pay their bills, people struggling with hurt, with trauma, with homelessness and poverty, sometimes with mental health or addictions. She's worked for Carmichael Outreach, for Regina's Urban Aboriginal Strategy, for the Saskatchewan government, for the University of Regina, and currently the YWCA, where she is their Senior Director of Housing. Cora Sellers has 7 kids, 7 grandkids, and she rises up with intention. She makes the world better each day she's in it. Please welcome Cora Sellers.
Thank you for inviting me to speak today. To Margaret, who suggested approaching me to speak, and to the elders for their prayers and their presence. Identity plays a large role in trauma, and the trauma from colonialism and attempts at genocide on our people presents as intergenerational symptoms such as chronic poverty, homelessness, mental health challenges, family violence and breakdown, and addictions. Addictions ultimately being an attempt to soothe the pain of trauma. Being Inuit and a 60 Scoop survivor growing up in Treaty 4 has been a challenge. I suffered many of the abuses experienced by other Indigenous people, but I felt decontextualized, hesitant, and often very unworthy, being separated from my lands and my ancestors. Having children who are from Treaty 4, and now grandchildren, however, changed my perspective. I've struggled to fight my mental health and addictions issues, but my identity and feeling of non-belonging has always been and continues to play a part that I one day hope to resolve. Becoming wiser and more self-aware, mostly by becoming a listener, it was our people on the street, those who have been most disconnected from people and land, who have taught me the most important lessons about life as an Indigenous person and our own resilience. One of the most important lessons that has been taught to me is that our advocacy is not about fighting for what's morally right. It's about survival and honoring those who fought before us. Our people are at high risk before they are even born. Sharing their stories with me as I went through my own trauma and addictions, I learned I was one of them. I also learned that getting out of poverty is not the great escape that it's sold as. It did nothing for the racism, the trauma, addictions, and violence I endured, and did not prevent me from passing it on to my children and now my grandchildren. I thank our people on the street for teaching me this. They taught me with love, patience, acceptance, and most of all, humor. While the rest of the world is just awakening to the roots of our ongoing colonization and genocide, while some look down on us and some hate us, how could I feel shame surrounded by so many beautiful people going through the same thing? I now wear my scars and fight my battle with love and courage and a fuller awareness, although I still struggle to work on my identity. Waniska could not come at a better time when so many people are struggling. While I can say I've done a lot of healing, I can also say I have a long way to go, and that it is lifelong, and that I can see the symptoms of the trauma appearing in my children and grandchildren. Part of the struggle is still with my identity and a connection to my own ancestors and lands, and this is where the promise of Waniska lies. Traditional Western medicine alone has not only been unkind, but deadly, but it doesn't have to be. I have hope for this project and its potential to make these connections with many other knowledgeable partners. The ongoing colonial experience necessarily includes destroying what is essential for our people, which is our connection to the land and to each other. I am hopeful about the work Waniska is doing to reestablish that connection, to recontextualize Indigenous people in a holistic way within their land and culture, to view the symptoms of trauma in a more culturally and land-based context, because it is here where Indigenous identity exists, and we can truly begin to nurture the roots of healing and recover who we are. Thank you.
Thank you to Cora. Now, a little bit more music from you, and this one's pretty close to my heart. The Boyers. Dallas Boyer, when he teams up with his father, Phil, they make this unstoppable duo, and from the festival circuit to the Olympics in Vancouver, the Boyers have performed their Métis fiddle music across Canada and the United States. They've recorded 5 albums, and for Dallas, if you ask him, he'll tell you that music is basically the medium that he and his father used to light up the room with our Métis culture. So let's hear the Boyers' Métis music.
Hi, we're the Boyers from Saskatoon, Bill and Dallas. We're going to play a little bit of a medley for you for the Waniska Center here in Saskatoon. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Métis medley for you. Big John McNeil, Whiskey Before Breakfast, and St. Anne's Reel. We hope you enjoyed that one. We'll finish off with another quick medley for you. Once again, it's for the Waniska Center here in Saskatoon. And we're coming from our home here in Saskatoon, beside Fiddler's Pond. Which bed do you want to do? Let's do maybe boiled cabbage, or how about maple sugar and rubber dolly? All right, do some maple sugar and some rubber dolly. Thank you.
I love that. That's totally the father-son dynamic. Hey, what should we play? Okay. That was the Boyers Métis music. Dallas Boyer plays with his dad, Phil. And it's funny because during this pandemic, I was lucky enough to come out with my husband. He said, let's go out to Dakota Dunes. There's a fancy supper. We'll just go and eat. Dallas Boyer was playing. And to hear the music there, just that fiddle, it drifts up into the ceiling and it just lifts your soul. It felt a little magical. And it's funny, with the fiddle, I challenge you, when there's a live fiddle in the room, to keep your feet still. And it takes me back to a few memories of my grandpa. I'm going to share just one with you. He was born in Manigatogan, which is a couple hours north of Winnipeg, up in Manitoba. And he grew up speaking Anishinaabe just like the other kids all did in Manigatogan. Grandpa loved to dance. He would jig. He, too, played the fiddle. Now, they moved out to Saskatchewan because they were miners. He fell in love with an English girl during the Second World War, and that's where all the white women started coming into our family, too. I wish I had asked my grandfather to play that fiddle more. Instead, more often than not, it sat wrapped up at the top of the closet. There's a Métis sash around it, and as a kid, you never think to ask. I hope my kids ask, and I hope I can help them flesh out the story of who we are and those traditions, those beautiful songs. Thank you so much to Dallas and Phil Boyer for that beautiful music. All right, on to our next speaker, Michael Redhead Champagne, and he lives in the north end of Winnipeg. He's a member of the Shamattawa First Nation. That's a fly-in community not too far from Hudson Bay. The river runs right up there. And Michael he's got a different kind of a presentation for us. I'll give you his credentials. He's the co-chair of Winnipeg's Sexually Transmitted and Blood-Borne Infection Outreach Response Network. He's a champion for harm reduction. He's a public speaker, he's an organizer, and he's part of this grassroots initiative in Winnipeg from former patients, healthcare providers, people who use drugs, and people who've been hurt, treated unfairly when they go to a hospital or clinic seeking help. He's part of Health Buddies Winnipeg. And so he's coming to Waniska's Indigenous Centre as it creates this combined elder and youth council. The idea is that this council will guide sort of the lead researchers, the knowledge users at Waniska. The council is there to support this intergenerational learning between the elders and our young people. Because let's be real, sometimes when you're hanging out with teenagers and people in their 20s, sometimes it feels like they're miles apart from our elders and our seniors. So here with his advice on how to connect with and build on young people's strength, here's Michael Redhead Champagne.
Tanse and good day. My name is Michael Redhead Champagne. I live in the north end of Winnipeg and my family is originally from Shamattawa First Nation in northern Manitoba. I've been involved in working with young people in and around health, mental health, and sexual health for a number of years, and I'm excited to be here today to bring some greetings and some gratitude to all of you at Waniska at this very special launch for the great work you've done and the exciting work that I know you're going to do in the future. One of the things that I've learned as a mentor to young people in working with youth organizations is how important it is for us to honor relationships. And so the one piece of advice that I'd like to start off with in sharing with all of you is that as you do your work around health and making sure that people understand what's happening around sexual health, around wellness, that it's something that we are all focusing on to explain to people the importance of relationships and healthy relationships too. So one thing that I would like to share with us while we're chatting today is a quick example of a youth engagement strategy that I've been able to develop with Indigenous youth in Winnipeg's inner city over the last few years that I think might help all of us as we move into the future with our journey of sexual health, wellness, and a good life for everyone. So there are 6 quick things I'm going to run by us today, all right? And these 6 things are related to youth engagement, and I hope that it's helpful to all of you who work with young people. I know for me as a mentor to youth, these 6 strategies have been super helpful. So we're just going to jump right into it. The first thing I have learned and would like you to acknowledge when you are working with young people is the importance of being accessible. All right, the information you're presenting, the time that you present it, where, the platform, how you say things, accessibility is critical. And I also think it's important for us to make sure that we are being as available to our folks of multiple abilities in our community as possible. So making sure that we have ramps, making sure that we have ways to reach people, maybe if they're hearing impaired or struggle with their sight or other disabilities. So that access piece is critical. It should be the first thing you think about when you're trying to make services or supports or anything available to youth. The second thing that we can think about is resources. All of us are going to have access to either budgets or resources or information or referrals or things like that that are resources and helpful to young people. If you want to have a meaningful work with these young people, I recommend that you give them the resources that are meant for them. Those resources aren't for us. We have those resources so we can disseminate them to young people so that they can make the best choices with their life. So step 1, access. Step 2, resources. The third step here is honoring relationships, okay? So when I talk about relationships, what I'm talking about is the importance of understanding and acknowledging the gifts that our young people carry and finding opportunities to share those gifts with other people. So that relationship is critical. And I know you have a meaningful relationship with young people when you can say what their many gifts are and they can say what yours are too. The next point of the strategy is the O, that's of opportunity. Opportunity means that you want to give folks a chance to try new things. You want to give folks a chance to share their gift, and you want to give people space or an activity that they can do so that they can achieve success. All right, so opportunity is critical, but it only comes after you've built that relationship. And I promise you, when you build a healthy and meaningful relationship with someone, you're going to know and understand intuitively which opportunities will fit them. The next point here is welcome, and that's exactly what we're doing today. We're welcoming people to this beautiful new center virtually, and we're also saying that you are welcome to come here. You're welcome to ask questions. You're welcome to be yourself. We want to make sure that we're letting young people know that they are welcome to engage with institutions and within systems and to ask questions, even if the questions maybe make some people uncomfortable, especially if it's around things like sexual health. So being able to have these real and direct conversations is critical, and we got to make sure young people know they are welcome to ask any question that they have to us adults that know and understand kind of what we got to do. Finally, the S is of support. Okay, so support young people to independence. Support young people to do the things that they have to do to live minopamatasewin and to live a good life. Let's work ourselves out of a job by providing so much information and resources and support to these young people that they are up leaders, doing great stuff in the community immediately. So there are so many different ways for us to support young people, and I don't know if people noticed, but I just spelt out access, resources, relationship, opportunity, welcome, and support. It's an acronym called ARROS. So the ARROS Youth Engagement Strategy is a tool that you can share and utilize in your work, trying to engage young people in health, wellness, so that everybody can have a good life. And I'm honored today to be welcoming all of you to this beautiful launch, and also saying I'm excited for the work we're going to be doing in building relationships and addressing many of the sexual health concerns we have in our community by sharing this knowledge and doing it in a good way. Ginanaskomitin now, thank you all for the beautiful work that you've done, and I hope we have a great day today, because it is a beautiful day. Mino Kisikaw. Take care.
It is a beautiful day. We have to have the shades down just so we can see the video screens, but it is gorgeous out there. So thank you, Michael. Now, the Jingle dance. This is one that you've probably seen of, maybe heard before. It's one that's passed on the mother's line, from grandmothers to mothers to daughters. It's a dance that brings healing, a medicine dance, and until you sit and listen, like really listen, you don't turn away from those whose voices need to be heard, those who are two-spirit, transgender, those who have lived experience in a world that tends to judge really harshly. The voices that you're starting to hear now hold courage, and they pave the way for others. And some of them draw strength from the languages of our ancestors. Gayle Pruden, she has one of those voices. She's the oldest of 5. She's raised on Treaty 2 territory at the Little Saskatchewan First Nation in Manitoba. Thank you to her grandmother, her grandfather, her great-grandfather. Because of all of them, Gayle Pruden speaks Ojibwe. She's a jingle dress dancer, and as a two-spirit woman, she says that she felt the gift of dance in a dream. She found the powwow trail. It merged with her knowledge, her gift of healing medicine, and it's a gift she shares, these old ways of doing ceremony. So please welcome Gayle Pruden. Thank you to Gayle. Well, some people's stories tend to stick in your head a long time after you've heard them. And for many people who have that lived experience of being HIV positive, of having the virus that causes hepatitis, or any of those sexually transmitted bloodborne infections, let's be real, some of their stories are going to hold shame and stigma and hurt. But some of the stories are also those that are those of resilience, like Jodie Albert's. Jodie's a mother. She's from the Attakakoop Cree Nation, just northeast of North Battleford, here in Treaty 6 territory. Back in 2004, she was diagnosed with hepatitis C. For years, she faced discrimination in the healthcare system, but she has transformed her own experiences into a life that is filled with purpose, and now she's turned to help others with addiction, with poverty, and with trauma. Here is Jodie Albert.
I started using when I was 20 years old. And the very first time I used was through IV use. It wasn't like popping pills or anything. It was like straight to IV use. I can't say what led me, but curiosity. I guess it was curiosity, and not realizing that the one time it was going to cause me to become addicted. A year into my using, I contracted hepatitis C. I got it through dirty water and a dirty spoon. I had my own needle, and not knowing it was that easily spread, I didn't think I'd catch it so easy, but I did. I was told over the phone. And I wasn't given much information about it. So when they told me I was positive for hepatitis C, I thought my life was over. I didn't know much about it other than that drug users get it and you can die from it. So I felt like my life was over. I felt like I had nothing to live for. Then I already had my first daughter, and it was a very scary time, especially not having much information on it. And I didn't care to find any information out about it. It was like my life just spiraled after that. It went downhill, and it stayed that way for a while, and it got worse and worse and worse. And I felt so dirty. I was always so careful with my tweezers, with my nail clippers, my toothbrush, my razors, and just even using somebody's bathroom, like sitting on the toilet or having a shower, just like that, I didn't have any knowledge on that, and just being afraid, so afraid that I was gonna pass it on to somebody else. And I lived that way for 14 years. 14 years I lived that way. And it was just a horrible feeling. I tried to act like I didn't have it. I didn't really tell people about it. I was so ashamed, so ashamed. I had some pretty horrible experiences with healthcare professionals around the community of Attakakoop. And it prevented me from going back to seeking some help. I went when I only had to go. So when the Attakakoop Health Center was hosting some liver health events, the nurses on staff, I knew them. They were from the community. And so it made it a lot more comfortable. I knew who they were. I didn't know them personally, but I knew about them. So it was a little more comfortable. And when they called me in to tell me that I already knew that I had hepatitis C, but my viral load was pretty high. From my lifestyle too, being an addict. When the nurses told me that my viral load was pretty high and that there was a treatment available, I was hesitant. I didn't really care because I lived with it for so many years that it was just like normal. It was just so normal to live that way, just to feel so dirty and ashamed and being an addict, just being treated differently and judged, and the stigma that it comes with being an addict and being Aboriginal, being First Nations. And like, it was just, it was a horrible feeling, but I was so used to living that way that when they told me about the treatment, it wasn't really something that I was excited about. but it was the way the nurses interacted with me. It was the way they interacted with me. It was like they seen past my diagnosis, they seen past my addiction, and they were able to see me. They were able to see Jodie, and they weren't dreading me to come into the office. They were so happy to see me, and they just treated me with such respect and kindness and dignity. It just made the world a difference. It made the world a difference. And and the more that I interacted with them, the more I became interested in the treatment. The more they gave me information about it, about how I can pass it through sitting on a toilet or from having a shower. It's just it was just the way they treated me. It was just the way they treated me that I could say is what would help me to be successful in curing my hepatitis C. I went on the treatment in 2017, and my viral load was undetected in 2018. And then, the way the nurses interacted throughout the whole 3 months, they checked on me, they asked me how I was doing, something that I wasn't used to, and it was so new. Because being an addict, you're not treated like you're a human being. I owe these women so much, and I thank them all the time for that, and I get emotional when I talk about it because my life has changed so much since I've been cured of hepatitis C. I don't feel so heavy. I don't feel so ashamed. And I'm not ashamed to talk about it either, because this is something that is life-changing. It's really life-changing. I got pregnant with my son when I was positive. When I was positive with hepatitis C, and I was using at the time. I used through my pregnancy, and the treatment I received in the hospital, being hepatitis C, being pregnant, and being First Nations. It was a horrible ordeal. I wasn't treated like I was a person. I wasn't treated like I was a woman, as anybody. They kept asking me questions over and over. Why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you doing this to your baby? And I couldn't answer them because I didn't even know myself. It's on the 23rd. It'll be the 10 months that I'm clean. I've been in recovery for 4 years. For almost 4 years, I've slipped in between, and I just try my best every day, and I have to really take my recovery seriously, because if I don't, then I'm going to be relapsing, right? And now I have this passion for those that have lived my kind of lifestyle, the addicts, the ones that are homeless, that are hungry, and that's what we deal with every day. I work as an outreach worker for mental health and addictions. And what I do is, and I work in harm reduction as well. I work in harm reduction. We make that vital connection with harm reduction, because they come in for their clean supplies and things. And it's got to be a community-led program for us to try and make a dent in the addictions and the mental health and the traumas that people deal with every day. It's I believe we've got community members that live in Saskatoon and out of the community, so it would be good if we could partner up with Waniska to help our community members, and in case that we can't assist them in anything, just to have more networks, more partnerships, and more help. Like the more the help, the merrier, because there's a lot of people out there that are walking around, with many wounds and many traumas, and I believe that if we all come together, the community comes together and partner up with other resources, we partner up and just tackle it and come up with something, you know? Because something can be done. Something has to be done. We're losing so many people, so many people. We just need to work together, you know? Treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, see past the diagnosis of these illnesses and the addiction. You know, we just show kindness, love, and respect. You know, things would be different.
That is Jodie Albert, and she's right. Things will be different. Well, earlier in the celebration today, we saw the TJ Warren dance crew. We have two other dancers from the crew that we'd like to welcome. First, we'll see Laryn Oakes. She's an award-winning dancer who will perform the ladies' fancy dance. When she dances, she's got this elegance and this grace. She floats to the beat of the drums. After her, you'll hear from Hunter Blassingame, and he'll share the men's traditional dance, and this is the one for hunting, tracking, and fighting.
Danse. My name is Laryn Oakes, and I am Plains Cree Meskwaki in Navajo, and I'm from the Niigaaniit First Nation located in Treaty 4, and I dance the woman's fancy. I've been dancing fancy shawl ever since I could walk, and a quick history on the fancy shawl. It's one of the more newer styles that has come to the powwow world, and whenever I talk about the woman's fancy, I like to talk about the resilience behind the history of it. So the woman's fancy has evolved into what it is today. A long time ago, it was a lot more ladylike. The dancers would keep their feet close to the ground, and they wouldn't really move their arms a lot, and it's how it is today is it's a lot of arm movements and footwork and endurance. And what I wear is I have the shawl, and we have the cape and all of the accessories in our leggings and moccasins. So the woman's fancy has definitely changed a lot over the years, and that is just a quick little history on the woman's fancy. Thank you.
Hunter Blasingame, Lame Deer, Montana, Northern Cheyenne. Hello, my name is Hunter Blasingame. I'm a Northern Cheyenne from Lame Deer, Montana. I dance the Northern traditional dance. This dance represents storytelling of when warriors would return from battle and they would celebrate being courageous and have surviving the battle. They would reenact for the people what they did. So our dance is a war dance. It's sometimes slow or sometimes quick, but the movements are pretty much the same throughout every nation that does this dance. We hold our heads up high, our arms at our sides, and we stomp the ground. Sometimes we go down low to imitate searching for the enemy. Sometimes we go down low to show the people how we crept up on the enemy. And when we found them, how we counted coup, how we touched them. That's the way we used to make war a long time ago. Without killing them, we would hit them. To get as close as you could to the enemy without harming them made you a stronger warrior, made you braver. My outfit that I wear is pretty modern considering the shininess and stuff like that, but there's a lot of old things that I still keep on practicing with that would have been a long time ago, like the knee bands on my legs. They're made of porcupine quills. Same with a lot of the accessories and things that I wear come from porcupine, smoked elk hide, and glass beads like they would have used a long time ago. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Laryn and to Hunter and to all of you. It's been a long sit. If you haven't had a chance to stretch, you will get one very soon. Our program is concluding, but the work of Waniska, of Pawasesquan, the Indigenous Wellness Research Group, that work's just beginning to reclaim those good ways, to reclaim ceremony, the land, what ancestors taught us about the land and about ourselves, and to acknowledge and start to heal some of that trauma from residential schools, from white supremacy, from colonization. All those hurts and pains that broke people, that stole lives and left us open to HIV, to hepatitis C, and to sexually transmitted bloodborne infections. As we heard, it's about survival, and it's about honoring those who came before us. This center is really, it sits in contrast to this whole history of research that academics did on Indigenous people, not with Indigenous people. Waniska provides the supports that Indigenous people and communities need in order to take research into their own hands, into our own hands. The Waniska Center is going to be Indigenous focused, it's Indigenous led, it puts those voices first. And remember that Waniska song from the very beginning, Simon Kaitwayhat's song, the words that mean, let's all get up now, the morning is here, the birds are already singing, and look up, it's going to be a beautiful day on earth. Well, may this launch of Waniska on National Indigenous Day and our solstice, may it bring us the light and the energy to get up and rise up. So thank you for inviting me to be your moderator here today. Thank you to both Dr. Alexandra King and to Dr. Malcolm King, to all of you who made the effort to be here. Thank you, and this is the start of something really good. Welcome to Waniska.